The main point that I want to make on this video is that the people that are running the show, the people that are running our world, they're magicians. They are wizards. This is what they do, right? And they do this full time. And I think most of the people that are listening to this podcast probably know that, right? That the people that are running our world are of occult nature. And this is what they're doing. You know, this is how they run the world. Now, if you're a psychopath of the world and you want to manipulate people's minds and mass mind control people and tell them that they're insignificant, well, what a great way to do that, by starting by saying there ain't no God. You're spinning out in the middle of nothingness. It's blackness of space. Things are just moving everywhere and you're insignificant. You're nothing. What a great way to start mass mind control.
Now, before we get to the main event in this video, I want to thank our sponsor, the Patriot Flashlight. This Survivor Tactical Flashlight is solar powered and it lights up the darkness with 500 lumens that can be seen miles away. There's a life-saving emergency strobe along with 4 more unique lighting modes, and the Patriot Flashlight even has a USB port which allows you to charge your cell phone anywhere. Your Patriot Tactical Flashlight is also equipped with a compass, wire and rope cutter, and an emergency glass breaking hammer. It's the perfect gift for you and your family. There is a limited supply of these tactical flashlights available right now, so get yours at a discount before they sell out. Use promo code SGT20 for 20% off. And purchase the best flashlight on the market at patriotflashlight.com. I'll leave the link below this video. Hey friends, thank you so very much for tuning in. You're going to want to sit back and buckle up because this is one strange but important call. I've never gone here before, and I joked with my friend Marty Leeds a few months back that this will be the video that destroys my YouTube channel. But guess what? YouTube is already doing its level best to destroy my YouTube channel. Ever since they announced on January 22nd they were changing their algorithms to filter out conspiracies and misinformation, my analytics show that they're doing a heck of a job destroying my channel. So why not talk about one of the subjects they say that we can't talk about?
It's just a coffin.
Yeah, right. And the earth is flat.
They've recently said that flat earth and 9/11 are 2 topics that are off the table. And like the bulldog I am, it's time to talk about the heliocentric model. Why would I do that? Well, because one of my favorite people on YouTube is Marty Leeds. His video, Deocculting Elon Musk, is a must watch. And also, I've invited on David Weiss. He's from the Flat Earth Podcast, and his YouTube channel is DITRH. He'll explain what that means in a second. First, let's welcome Marty. Marty, how are you, buddy?
Good. Thank you for having me on again, Sean. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure. And you're in Hawaii now, huh?
Living in Hawaii.
Living the dream. Okay.
Yeah,
and we'll welcome David. David, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Sean, thanks. I'm a big fan. I really appreciate you having us on, and I congratulate you on having the courage to talk about this very triggering topic. And you said, YouTube's not allowing 9/11 and flat earth talk. Well, 9/11 was my favorite topic before flat earth came in, and we'll get into that as we go on. But thanks for having us. DITRH stands for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole.
Very good. And I'm glad to have you both on because I know that you both understand the New World Order. You guys understand false flags. It's what you cut your teeth in, just like me. And so now that YouTube has made this topic really off limits, seriously, like a bulldog, that's why I want to talk about it, because I think that what we're facing, and Marty, you do a heck of a job with this in all of your videos. Your videos are so amazing, and your work with gematria, I just stand in awe of your knowledge of math. You do a great job with all of that stuff. You've really opened my eyes to many things that are hidden in plain sight. And at the end of the day, I think this is all spiritual warfare. That's how I started my video interview with James Perloff, the author. The name of the video I'm referring to is "The Elite Don't Want You to Know God is Real." So this whole topic is really, to me, guys, about spiritual warfare. And I want to level set that thought with Wernher von Braun's tombstone, upon which he left Psalms 19:1. Guys, let's look at Psalms 19:1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Why would Wernher von Braun, the father of modern rocketry, the brains behind the NASA Apollo missions to the moon, put Psalms 19:1 on his tombstone? Was it a message? What was he trying to tell us? Marty, where would you like to begin with this conversation? Because it sure is going down the rabbit hole.
Well, NASA's a good place to start. So, who you just mentioned, obviously, Werner Van Braun came over from Operation Paperclip. He was, supposedly one of these Nazis that the United States brought over. The interesting thing about NASA is if you look into the history of NASA, you clearly see that it has occult origins. There's no question about it, and so that's where basically we're getting our information for about space, about our cosmology, about all the stuff that's out there, about landing on the moon. We get that from an organization that is clearly represented by occult figures. I mean, I think we know most people know this. That started the guy that started JPL. He was an occultist. He was Ordo Templi Orientis, right? Jack Parsons. So the first thing we have to start is if we go back to the foundations of where we get our information about space, we have to see, look, it's of an occult origin, and that should raise a lot of red flags for any reasonable person.
And David, why don't we do this? I know one of the missions that you guys gave me prior to this call was to sort of stand up for the heliocentric model and sort of play devil's advocate to anything you guys have to say. And the more research I've done in this topic, the more difficult it is to actually do that. But I do have one clip that I think will really help us start the conversation, and it's a clip from Joe Rogan. I'll play it for a second. David, you had something to say?
Yeah, what I wanted to say is when I first heard about Flat Earth, I was doing 9/11, Sandy Hook, Boston, research on all of that. And then Flat Earth came in. People sent me clips. I wouldn't watch a 1-minute video. Most ridiculous thing. And I banned people from our social media for life for even suggesting it. But then somebody forced me to look. Sophia Smallstorm convinced me to watch a video. And for 2 weeks, 18 hours a day or more, I was trying to debunk Flat Earth. And now, 4.5 years later, I am hosting the Flat Earth podcast, and every day my mind is blown of what I am finding. I don't want the Earth to be flat. I want to know the truth. And until you have the courage to look and find out how utter ridiculous the helio-nonsensical model is, it's just mind-blowing. So for your listeners that are new to this, hang in there. Just listen, and you will see the awakening is beyond what you can imagine.
I'm glad you actually said that. Sophia's a friend of mine going back many years, and she tried to do the same for me, and I rejected it. I rejected the information, and I was even so close-minded as to tell my former contributor to sgtreport.com, Rory, who's a good guy, who started posting Flat Earth videos. I said, you can't post those on my site, dude. I love you, but I'm not going there. It's obviously a CIA psyop. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. You can post anything else you want. I trust your judgment, but not Flat Earth. And so really, after all these years later, 3 years later, I should apologize to Rory because he had a more open mind on it than I did.
We all have the same story. And by the end of this, your listeners will realize that people, they throw up their hands after they keep asking questions and keep getting Flat Earth, good Flat Earth answers. They go, well, why? Why would they do it? Why does it matter? This is the most important secret for the elite to keep control over us. Because if you don't know who you are, where you are, what you are, you think you're an insignificant speck flying through infinite space, then you give up your power completely.
All right. Can you guys see my screen here? I want to play this clip. It's from John Thor on YouTube. The title is Flat Earth, Himawari 8 satellite debunked. Joe Rogan smashed. All right, let me play this. This is my devil's advocate for you guys because they say that all of the pictures of Earth, the blue marble, are all stitched together by NASA. And I actually do have a clip I can play about that later. NASA has a lead data visual simulator. His name is Robert Simon, and his job is to collect all the data and then create the image of the Earth. We can play that later. But here's Joe Rogan, who lately has come under quite a bit of fire for turning tail and not really standing up for those of us who have been censored by Google and YouTube and Twitter. And everybody's calling him a shill. But one thing I'll say, guys, is that he never, ever believed in the moon landings and NASA's official narrative of the moon landings. And now he says he's just a dumb guy who doesn't know any better. So who is he to judge? Here's Joe Rogan on Flat Earth.
Well, the Japanese have the Himawari 8 satellite that takes gigantic high-resolution full photos of the Earth from 22,000 miles out every 10 minutes, somewhere around then.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, well, pull that up. The Himawari 8, what's the details in the Himawari 8? It's one of the best things to use against these flat Earth dorks. Because for the longest time, one of the things they were saying is that there was no full photos of the Earth from space, that everything was just stitched together. They're just they don't know jack shit. They're so fucking stupid. It's such a scary, stupid theory.
All right, I'll pause it there. A scary, stupid theory. All right, guys, question. If flat Earth is so preposterous and so stupid, and you guys both, who I know are very smart, are just stupid fools, why is YouTube now making this topic off limits? Why is this so scary to the establishment? Why is having this conversation probably going to result in me losing thousands of subscribers who now think I'm an idiot as well?
Can I say something? Then I'll let you, because I know David knows about the Himawari pretty 8. He can dismantle this pretty well. I will say this, though. What is the threat of, even if, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that I'm a complete moron and I believe the Earth is flat. What is the actual harm in believing that, right? We have people, there's literally millions of Scientologists that believe that Zeno, the galactic dictator, is going to come down and save them, right? That is just as crazy, quote unquote, on the surface as flat Earth is. So why are YouTube not going to try to, take down all the people that are Scientologists? Of course, this is just, once again, they see conspiracies gaining a lot of traction. It's gaining a lot of ground. Lots of people are becoming flat earthers. And just like everything else, when the truth comes out, they have to shut it down. That's exactly what's happening.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, so the Himawari 8, that's the one that they all use. But if you look at those photos, they're not from nearly that distance. They're actually paintings. And we actually found, I forget who found it, a backdoor, an open server at NASA where they store all the Himawari 8 images. And what they are is there's the blue marble flat painting. There's real-time satellite weather data. And when I say satellite, I mean balloons or high-altitude airplanes. And then they just wrap them together, and we can see exactly how they make these photos. We send balloons up 120,000 feet, and you can't see any detail on the Earth. You can't see the detail that this thing is seeing from, thousands of miles farther or whatever the distance is. But the video is called Himawari 8 Exposed, and it's on the Paul on the Plane YouTube channel. If anybody wants to find it, just watch that, and you'll no longer use that as any sort of proof.
All right. Well, let me play another clip for you here in a second. And, there is a passage here on NOAA's.gov site about the Himawari 8 satellite. And the sentence reads this: the underlying colored land image is taken from the NASA Blue Marble Next Generation data set. So now let me play you this clip. This is from a video titled "Why NASA Never Went Back to the Moon" from John Caleb Warren. Let me do my screen share. Hopefully I have this queued up to the right spot. This is about NASA's lead data visual simulator, Robert Simon. Here's how they come up with the images of Earth that they show us, guys. Listen to this.
And he says the last time anyone took a photograph from above low Earth orbit that showed an entire hemisphere, one side of a globe, was in 1972 during Apollo 17. He also says by 2002, we finally had enough data to make a snapshot of the entire Earth. So we did. The hard part was creating a flat map of the Earth's surface with 4 months of satellite data. Rito Stockley, now at the Swiss Federal Office of Meteorology and Climatology, did much of this work. Then we wrapped the flat map around a ball. My part was integrating the surface, clouds, and oceans to match people's expectations of how Earth looks from space. That became the famous blue marble. Okay, I know I already touched on this earlier, but I just keep wondering, why doesn't NASA just deploy a rover to the moon, equipped with a camera at least comparable to my Nikon P900? Then they would have it on the moon's surface all the time, because they could take continuous images of the entire Earth throughout the different seasons and months. They could zoom in on continents and islands, and maybe even more, like I do of the moon from here on Earth.
I'll pause it right there, guys. And I think that the questions raised right there alone are enough to make us scratch our head. Why doesn't NASA send a rover to the moon to shoot video of the Earth 24/7? Anybody want to weigh in on the big blue marble, the blue marble pictures?
Yeah, just quickly on the moon, if you think about it, the same side of the moon, according to Helio nonsensical model, faces the Earth. So putting a rover on the moon facing Earth, they could stream the Earth spinning in space 24 hours a day. They can get corporate sponsors to pay for the entire thing because it would be the most watched live stream ever. But in reality, the only pictures we've ever gotten from space, the best camera they put up there is a 4 megapixel camera. Okay, 4 megapixels, right? I mean, that's just beyond ridiculous. As far as the blue marble, if you look at the blue marble, there's many breakdowns of it. There's clone stamped clouds. That's the first thing you notice. The proportions of the continent of the USA are different than the picture from 2002. Look at the 2002 and 2012 image of Earth, and the United States is over double the size in one of them with the same size sphere painting.
Hey, Marty, can I ask you something? And you can weigh in on any of that, but I think I got this from one of your videos. It might have been your video, De-occulting NASA. I'm not sure, but you reminded us in that video that they tell us the Earth is moving at a speed of 66,600 miles per hour around the sun. They love to play their games with their numbers and their 666s and their numerology. Do you want to weigh in on any of the stuff that we just talked about, or the speed, or the heliocentric model and its faults as you see them in general?
As far as the math is concerned, I actually did a video called, it's a very wordy title, but it's called The Cosmological Manipulation of Our Geocentric System and Squaring the Circle. And basically what we can see is that one of the things that I study is basically the occult mathematics, if you will. Basically mathematics that would be, this is arithmomancy, as you mentioned, Kabbalah, gematria, numerology, this sort of stuff. So that's my focus for a long time. Well, what I can see is when I actually look at the metrology of, and the distances, the metrology, how fast these things are spinning, basically the numbers that they're using, the canon of numbers that they're using is in the sacred geometrical canon. There's no question about that, right? And so one of the things they actually use to manipulate like I said, the metrology of the sun or the earth and the moon is actually a thing called squaring the circle. This gets a little heady for anybody that's listening because they don't know exactly what I'm talking about. But the video I'm talking about, I think is maybe a 15, 20-minute video or something like that. But if you go into that video, you will see that whoever's basically, manifesting or constructing or fabricating our cosmology, manipulating the cosmology, is basically using numbers and things like that that are found in the Bible, for instance, right? So as you just said, 666 is a perfect example of that, right? So this is the main point that I want to make on this video is that the people that are running the show, the people that are running our world, they're magicians. They are wizards. This is what they do, right? And they do this full time. And I think most of the people that are listening to this podcast probably know that, right? That the people that are running our world are of a occult nature. And this is what they're doing. This is how they run the world. And I basically go and show how this stuff happens in, de-occulting Las Vegas. When we look at Las Vegas, they're using the same sort of thing. So these are the sort of things that will start catching your mind when you start seeing some of this stuff. So the 666, like you mentioned, yes, is a perfect example of that.
David, this is a roundtable, so if you want to weigh in on any of that, just feel free to jump in. But I just want to get back to this idea of spiritual warfare. Why would I have a conversation about this? Why do I have an open mind? Why am I questioning the heliocentric model? I'm not exactly sure what it is that we're living on. I just don't think it's necessarily what they've told us we're living on. My initial thoughts on this subject is maybe the Earth is just far, far larger than they've told us. Maybe it's still a ball, but it's far, far larger. Marty, as you've outlined in some of your videos, the mathematics just don't add up. If you shoot long-distance infrared photography, the mathematics of the sphere model, the globe model, just don't add up. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, guys? And one of the other topics I wanted to bring up that really was convincing to me that I need to question this thing upon which we live just a little bit more is that water always finds its level. I'll play a clip regarding that in a second, but do you guys want to talk about the basic math that makes people question what this is that we're living on?
Sure. We're told that the Earth is 24,901 miles around. And so for any size sphere, there is some spherical trigonometry that'll tell you what the curve rate is. And the curve rate, the approximate curve rate for Earth, for short distances, which could be up to a couple thousand miles, is 8 inches per mile squared. Some people just I don't understand that. It's very simple. First mile is 8 inches. Second mile is 2 times 2 times 8 is 32 inches. Third mile brings you up to 6 feet because it's curving and dropping down at an increasing rate. So if you use the official round Earth curvature formula, the horizon for a 6-foot person standing on the water's edge on a calm day should be 3 miles out. but we can take our cameras at lower levels than that and zoom in on things much farther than that. And the problem is, we're told that boats go over the horizon and we see them disappear from the bottom up. Well, the truth is, we don't see them disappear. They get too small. The angular size gets too small for our eyes to resolve. And on a clear day, after a boat appears in your mind to go over the horizon, you can zoom in with a P900 or a P1000 camera and boom, bring the entire boat back in. Quickly, over time, without making this too long, over distance, the thickest part of our atmosphere is over the land, the lower parts, and over water, there's moisture. And there's stuff that will become opaque over a relatively short distance. So as the angular size of the lower parts of that ship gets smaller, they disappear for several reasons. They go behind the mirage of the water. They get too angularly small for our eyes to resolve. And it appears that it's going down bottom first. But that happens so much farther than it should, that you shouldn't be able to see it because it should be below hundreds or thousands of feet of curvature, depending on the situation.
This is the thing that I always talk about too, is that people, especially people that are new to this question about the flat earth, people say, well, what is the sun? What is the moon? What are the stars? What's the retrograde? How does all that stuff work? Well, the first thing you have to do is say, first, what goes on in the heavens, we don't really know. Let's stop there. The first thing you should do is look what's right below your feet. Start at square one. That's the first thing you need to do. If you can look at square one and say, hey, they're telling us that this is a sphere. This is an oblate spheroid, right? Well, that oblate spheroid has specific geometry, has specific measurements to it. They're giving us those measurements. Anybody can perform this math. Well, as we're finding again and again and again and again, it does not fit those measurements. So when you get into this question about flat earth, start with what's right below your feet. Start at earth and say, hey, can we verify demonstrably what they're telling us? And the answer to that is no. One of the things that David, a good friend of David and I, Jaron Campanello over at Jaronism.com, Globebusters, check him out. He just put a video up by J. Tolan Media. And it's an infrared camera, and it's basically and I think this is essentially from maybe 6 feet high or something, or it's really close to the water, within several feet. And he can see a mountain range that's 123 miles away. Now, that would be like me standing in Eugene, Oregon, and seeing Washington State from there, right? Now, that doesn't make sense on the ball model at all. And so that camera footage alone absolutely refutes what we're being told about heliocentrism.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to bring up next. The long-distance infrared photography that exposes the globe lie. Now, this is Mount St. Jacinto, shot from a peninsula, I guess, in California, 123 miles away, this Mount St. Jacinto, by J. Tolan Media 1 on YouTube. You guys want to go and check that out, because with the infrared photography, he can see farther with the infrared photography than we can see with our naked eye, and he's able to zoom in and demonstrably show that the fall off we should be seeing in the spherical model should eat up half of that mountain.
Then you get the image here that he's showing you, where he clearly shows the mathematics involved and shows you see that bottom yellow line? That's where the peak should be, behind the curve, just as Google showed it. The problem is, it's not reality. And I don't know what to tell you guys. Again, you can believe that all the things that you've been taught are true, and that mountains appear from behind curves and all that, or you can believe your eyes.
But we can still see it from base to tip, which does not make sense. So that is a head scratcher. Let me ask you guys this. Why would they be doing this? Why would they want to deceive us about the thing upon which we live? Is it because if it is what is described in the Bible and what Werner von Braun put on his tombstone, if it's that, it actually supports the idea of creation. It supports the idea of a loving God who created us and the heavens and the earth. Is that why they would be deceiving us? Who wants to take this? Why would they be doing this?
It is. So for me to say this is an incredible thing, because 5 years ago when I was doing all my stuff, if I'm listening, I could be listening to you, the Hagmans, or whoever. I could be listening and I'm like, that's really good information. And then they'd mention the Bible. Boom. I disregard everything they say. I turn it off. No religion, no creator. I believe that I evolved like we were taught. And that was it. But when I tried to debunk the flat earth and realized, oh my God, the earth is flat, the implications are unbelievable. Because the first thing is, it's an intelligently designed system. It was created by something, period. It wasn't a random speck. So that right there tells you there's a creator. And that's when everything changed. So that is what they're doing, because if everyone woke up to 9/11 tomorrow morning, they can get out of it. They can weasel the way out of it. They can put people on trial and everything. But if everyone woke up tomorrow morning knowing the earth was flat and intelligently designed, game over for the control system. Game over.
I'll say amen to that. And let me just give you and the audience a little perspective of my journey. I basically came to understand that there was God long before I came into flat earth. But I will say this, that for years, I didn't know what was out there, if I was atheist, agnostic, if there was a God, if there wasn't. So I basically spent years and years and years studying science, quantum physics, astrophysics, things like, the solar system model. I read books, I listened to lectures, I listened to interviews. I mean, I dove into this subject for a very, very long time. And I was of the belief that, yeah, we evolved and stuff like that, right? Well, all those years of studying, intense study, basically, if I would have been told and if I would have known that the earth was flat, I could have saved all of that time in basically studying a bunch of absolute nonsense. And I would have known right away the very thing that I was looking for. And the very thing I was looking for was God. And, flat earth basically says, yeah, this is designed. There ain't no getting around it. This thing is it's four corners, if you will. There's some sort of firmament or dome. Either way, whatever the actual model is, there's no getting around the fact that there is an intelligent designer behind that. Now, if you're a psychopath of the world and you want to manipulate people's minds and mass mind control people and tell them that they're insignificant, well, what a great way to do that, by starting by saying there ain't no God. You're spinning out in the middle of nothingness. It's blackness, it's space. Things are just moving everywhere and you're insignificant. You're nothing. What a great way to start mass mind control.
Do what thou wilt. That's
exactly
what they push.
Yeah, and that's exactly the way I see it too, guys. It's never been more clear that these people are aligned against humanity. They promote perversions, right? We can see what they're doing now with their 12 perversions that they're trying to promote, including bestiality and pedophilia. Okay, guys, in the interest of just trying to stay on track with the most obvious things people would ask, I do have a clip I could play for you regarding how water finds its level. Water always finds its level, guys. So think of the spherical globe model of the Earth, and you tell me how, say, for instance, the water going through the Suez Canal stays flat for many, 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 many miles. How does water always find its level? Yet in the spherical model, it does not. The other thing I want to talk about, guys, is the best proofs that the Earth is stationary and not flying through space around the sun. Which one of those should we talk about first?
There's so many. Let's just talk about the Suez Canal. I believe it's over 100 miles. There should be 6,666 feet of curvature. I think that's the number. It's just a big number. They never engineered for it. Water. If you ask somebody, a globalist, how water sticks to the underside of a ball, perfectly even, they'll say there's only one answer: gravity. Gravity, and water finds its level over mass distance. Any water, people will say, well, what about a water droplet and whatnot? Water, large bodies of water at rest are level, and it just goes on as far as your eye can see. So that is like one of the best proofs. Earth is 70% water, and water is flat. The curvature has never been measured.
Marty, you can weigh in on that. I just think what's interesting about gravity is being the argument for the spherical model and explaining how the oceans can be curved in the spherical model. Gravity is an explanation that doesn't hold up to scrutiny, because how can gravity be so powerful? I think I heard Eddie Bravo say this. How can gravity be so powerful as to keep billions and billions of tons of heavy water in line with the spherical model, but so weak as to allow a helium balloon to rise? Gravity just doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It's too simple an answer for such a complex problem.
Yeah, I mean, well, gravity's got more holes in it than Swiss cheese, right? I mean, there are so many anomalies and problems with gravity that, gravity is supposed to hold down literally you when you jump up. Gravity is pulling you back down. It's pulling you to the center of the earth. Yet that gravity is so strong that it will pull your entire body down, but you have the strength to defy gravity by literally lifting your hand. You know, there's enormous problems with gravity. The thing, once again, when we get to this occult stuff, we have to find out, we have to look at where this stuff comes from, right? Well, you know, when you look at Newton, you look at who like was basically promoting Kepler and Galileo and Copernicus. You look at who was promoting Henry Cavendish. Henry Cavendish, by the way, is the guy that supposedly measured the, you know, the weight of the Earth. That's a hell of a story. Hilarious, actually. All these guys came from the Royal Society. So, you know, basically you have a group of royals that were paid to push their own scientism or pseudoscience out to the public to get people to accept this stuff. So all of these guys that we're getting our main science from, gravity, the way, you know, Cavendish, like I said, these sorts of cats, they all come from literally an occult organization called the Royal Society. So once again, when we go to the origins of this stuff, you can see pretty clear where it's coming from.
Yeah, and Sean, a lot of people when they say, well, let me look into flat Earth. If you Google flat Earth, you go right to the Flat Earth Society. None of us belong to the Flat Earth Society. It's a controlled opposition site that gives you a tiny bit of truth and mixes it with utter nonsense. Like they say that gravity is the Earth rising up at 7.8 meters per second or whatever the number is to create gravity. Nonsense. Nobody believes that. So that is a disinformation site. It's a gatekeeping site to keep people away from the truth. My idea of gravity, and it can be tested. Gravity can never be has never been proven, demonstrated. It is a theory. You know, their high priest Neil deGrasse Tyson, he doesn't know how gravity works, and it's never been demonstrated. It's sticking water to a ball. What I say is the Earth is, we know that there's free energy in the Earth and in the air, that the Earth plane has a static charge to it that establishes a very weak force, an attraction like dust going to a television screen, an old television screen. So that establishes a down. That's all you need to do. And then buoyancy and density sort everything else out. You can demonstrate this in the lab. I can take a piece of styrofoam that has static on it and pull things up and away from gravity just with a little static charge. Maglev trains are using electromagnetism to defy what? Electromagnetism or perhaps some sort of static electromagnetic charge.
Okay, guys, well, why don't we do this? Because so many people believe that everything coming from NASA is the truth. Now, many people have been waking up to the official stories that NASA tells. For instance, the moon landings, the Apollo moon mission seem to have a lot of holes in that official story. We had the technology to go to the moon, but NASA has since lost it. That's really fascinating because the computers required to send astronauts to the moon back in 1970 would have filled up my house, literally. And now we have more computing power in the iPhone in your pocket. And yet, somehow, with better technology, we can't go back to the moon. Meanwhile, NASA is saying that it's landing rovers on Mars all the time, like this InSight rover. I want to play this clip because, guys, as I play this clip, let me go to screen share. Let's just watch what I could call theater, I think is probably the fairest way to describe this. Let's just watch the reaction of these NASA mission control specialists as they claim to have landed the InSight rover on Mars. Here's the clip.
Touchdown confirmed.
All right, that clip, since I first saw it, that girl doing that ridiculous choreographed dance with that guy in the high five, it is the most absurd thing I can think of. And look, we've all known people who have been in the military. I've known pilots. I've known air traffic controllers. These people are so professional. The people in charge of making sure that passenger planes can land safely and take off safely are so professional. You would never in 10 million years see that type of theater in the military or even at your local airport.
Sean,
how in the world can we explain this sort of behavior coming out of NASA? This to me is absolute theater.
Look at a fighter pilot, you know, the quality, caliber, and intelligence and physical build of people that they choose as fighter pilots. And then look at the complete bozos they pick for the ISS and listen to them talk. They're morons. What you saw there in the control room, if you watch the whole thing, it shows them nothing. All they're doing is hearing somebody do a countdown. On the screen is a animation. So let me ask a question. If it crashed, did they have an alternative animation that showed it crashing and exploding? And then they're all clapping. I mean, we can put together a bunch of people and make that exact same video in a day. And we don't need $56 million a day to do it.
Notice too, it's just the same as like in the Apollo missions. People say, well, how do they get all these people to lie? How does this organization get all these people to trick people, right? Well, number one, they work for the military, so they sign non-disclosure agreements. So if they say anything after they get out of the military, they're screwed. They'll lose their pension, they'll lose their money, they can go to jail, all that sort of stuff. Number two, if you look at any of those videos like JPL or whether that's NASA or anything like that, every single person has one computer screen. It's the same thing that they did back in the Apollo missions. That means that everybody has their one particular thing that they're focused on. This is compartmentalization. And this is exactly how they do this sort of stuff. Not everybody needs to know what's going on. Everybody in that control room may actually have believed that they were going to Mars.
Or some of them.
Some of them, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So who knows? But when people ask questions like that, how do you control? It's very easy. Compartmentalization.
And anytime you watch any launch from any agency, watch when the ignition happens, within 3 seconds, there's 3 different cuts already in the video. They never show you the entire thing go up. And then within a minute, it switches to a cartoon. And people just buy it as real.
We see the same thing coming from SpaceX too. These same types of children celebrating every single takeoff and landing. And how about these reverse landings of SpaceX? Is there anything more nonsensical than bringing a rocket down in reverse?
It's shown. What was it? The Thunderbolts. What was the name of that cartoon back in the day? It basically, it just shows this ridiculous old cartoon of a ship coming down. There's no way that thing can stabilize. They have these little fins, little milk crate fins on the bottom that are supposedly stabilizing it. And then if you look at the propulsion that's coming out of that, the little bit of fire, it's just the nonsense people believe is beyond what I can even fathom anymore.
Marty, you can weigh in on this because you've done some research on Elon Musk and SpaceX. I think that the Elon Musk clip in which he says, it's real because it looks so fake when he's talking about having launched a Tesla into space is a very important clip. Because if you think about the delicacy and the mathematics and the engineering required to safely launch a rocket into space at all, somehow, to me, mounting a Tesla atop of that rocket with all the imbalances of a modern-day road car doesn't make a lot of sense. And then there have been people who have caught quite a few anomalies of the video supposedly being broadcast from that Tesla that is supposedly in orbit around the Earth. Your thoughts on Elon Musk, SpaceX, the Tesla orbiting Earth, any of it? Is it all just theater?
Yes, it's all just theater. And I think the reason that SpaceX was actually even created was so that they could actually have this. See, look, it's not just government-run space organizations. We have this private organization now. They're going to space, right? Well, I mean, if we already know that, I think SpaceX received, I don't know how many billions of dollars from the federal government. So it's not private, that alone right there, But yeah, the car going into space is ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. Just think about it. What's the car made of? Is it vinyl? Is there rubber? Is there paint on the car?
Why did the tires explode?
Yeah, and I mean, all of that sort of stuff. How did they lacquer it with some sort of space juice or whatever that's going to, protect it from the 2,500 degrees in the thermosphere? But none of these questions are asked. They present this stuff en masse, and most people accept it. And all really it takes is just a little bit of digging to really pull the rug out from under the whole thing.
The only people that believe in NASA are the ones that refuse to actually look at the evidence.
Absolutely.
And I'll say this is very strange, and it's not 99. I don't know any of the other flat earthers that came across it this way. I discovered that the Earth was intelligently designed. I'm in an offline chat group, and we're talking about the flat Earth, and then they mentioned NASA, and I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't know that the moon landings were fake. I found out the Earth was flat before I found out NASA was just a complete Hollywood studio joke. And then it took me 10 minutes to look. I mean, I looked, people sent me some links, and I was just like, oh my God, it's all fake. All of it.
NASA's the only organization that we have right now, or entity, where technology has almost literally gone backward.
That's right.
I mean, everything else is increased, but somehow we just can't get back to the moon and blah, 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 I mean,
heard,
if you look at the old Apollo too, the rover that's on Mars,
yeah.
Take a solid look at that. If you look at it, it looks like it's like a beach chair that's on there. I mean, it's a joke anymore.
Well, look at the lunar lander. I've been at the Smithsonian, guys, in Washington, D.C. I mean, the thing, it looks like a tinfoil kids project, literally, that a caring father who really took a lot of time to do a science project with his son, they built this thing in the backyard. Literally. How in the hell was that thing supposed to hold up? It's literally wrapped, and they say NASA's own admission, the thickness of the skin supposedly was about 3 layers of tinfoil thick. It's absurd. Mm-hmm. And I've always thought the smoking gun of the NASA Apollo moon landings is that they brought a lunar rover. You're trying to tell me that it's so easy to get men to the moon that they had plenty of fuel. They didn't have to worry about the extra weight of a lunar rover. Somehow they needed a dune buggy because they'd already done all the other scientific experiments.
On the moon.
Think about this too. Like, we're all human beings. So, you know, these are the first people that went 238,000 miles away from Earth. They landed on the moon. They didn't know if they were going to get back. They didn't know if this thing was going to actually reattach to the module and then head back to Earth. They didn't know any of that stuff. The minute you actually landed on that moon and walked out, you would be, pardon my language, you would be shitting your pants. You would be scared shitless. You wouldn't be jumping around on the moon and driving little buggies and playing frickin' golf. 230, almost 250,000 miles away, first people to land on a heavenly object. And those guys act like it's like they just went to Florida, went golfing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they act just like those mission control specialists did in that celebration. It's absurd. It really is theater, because you're right, Marty. You would be taking your mission as seriously as a heart attack if you exited the lunar lander and walked onto the moon. It would be as serious a mission as has ever happened in human history, and that's why so many of us don't believe it actually happened. Because now NASA still admits today they can't safely get astronauts through the Van Allen radiation belts. That's still a problem they're trying to tackle, but evidently they did it absolutely no problem back in 1970.
It's just total fakery. It wasn't broadcast live. It was all edited, and I mean, all you have to do is look, and then you'll really kick yourself. Like, how did I ever believe that? And here's the problem: we're all good, trustworthy people. If Marty introduced you to me today, and I said, "Hey, I'm an MD, I'm a doctor," you could go, "Cool," and your day is done. Right? You have a new belief and you're done. But if you really want to find out, after I hang up, you'll be like, "Hey, where does he live? I'm going to check out what school he went to." You're going to make some phone calls. You have to spend this effort. People aren't willing to do that. They just believe authority. If you start a sentence with "a new study shows," or you wear a white lab coat, or you're presented on the news, people just believe it without checking.
Yeah, and meanwhile, NASA has admitted that they've lost all the telemetry data that would prove the missions to the moon happened. They've lost all of the technology to get us back. And so let's stay on track with NASA. Has NASA, in its own words, ever talked about a flat Earth model? Well, I have a clip to play for you guys. Let me go to my screen share.
You'll notice they never say sphere. They always say circle. And circle, our circles can be flat.
This is from a 1988 NASA document called Derivation and Definition of a Linear Aircraft Model. Credit to Lucid Truth YouTube channel. The name of the video, The Strange Truth Project. Listen to this.
And here's something interesting that I found at NASA's website. It's a NASA reference publication from the late 1980s about the derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model. Let's go through this. There's a lot of math, but toward the end on page 30, the first sentence in the concluding remarks say, "This report derives and defines a set of linearized system matrices of a rigid aircraft of constant mass, flying in a stationary atmosphere over a flat, non-rotating Earth." I gotta ask, why would this exist if we're supposed to be on a spinning ball? NASA had already been to the moon several times and explored outer space in many ways by the 1980s. So why would they need documentation talking anything about a stationary atmosphere and a flat, non-rotating Earth?
I'll pause it there. Guys, I don't know if any pilot I've ever met has had the training required to nose down the aircraft every certain amount of miles when flying across the ocean, for instance, in a spherical model. Does the airplanes that we fly on, do they just automatically tilt nose down and go over the spherical model just based on gravity? How does that work?
I'll go real quick and then I'll let Marty take this. Is an airplane, words have meaning, is flying over the Earth plane at 500, 550 miles an hour. The plane would have to drop nose down a mile every 2 minutes to maintain the curve of the Earth. Otherwise, within a couple of hours, they'd be 80, 100,000 feet in the air and heading towards space. Marty?
I mean, honestly, he just nailed it. That's all you really need to know about that. I will say something about NASA, though. If you want to, when Dave's saying, "Hey, somebody claims they're a doctor," and then you start going to look at, "Hey, is this true? Where do they go to school? Where do they live? That sort of stuff." There's a channel on YouTube called Jeff Quitney. As Quitney, I think it is. And he basically, what this guy does, he's not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but basically he's archived all the old NASA stuff. So you can watch videos from NASA from like 1960s and 1970s and stuff like that. And I compel you to watch those videos because they are hilarious. They are hilarious. What they claim that they were doing back in the 60s and 70s and what they provided as evidence to do so is nonsense. I mean, the space suits that they're wearing, they look like you said, tin foil. I mean, it's a joke. So if you ever get a chance, go check out that YouTube channel. That's all I wanted to say. So,
can we talk about spacesuits and pressure?
Yeah, let's do that. And then we'll get back to this water always finds its level because I think it's really important. I have a 1 minute clip I want to play for you guys.
Yeah, so there's never been in science, has it been proven that you could have high pressure next to a vacuum without a barrier. You have an aerosol can, it's a pressurized system, poke a hole in it, pressure is going to equalize. The Earth is a pressurized system. Space is an absolute vacuum. Why doesn't space suck the air off the Earth? And the only answer is gravity. But we can simply disprove that. My lungs, by inhaling through a straw, create a much weaker vacuum, and I could suck air up and away from Earth. I can suck water up and away from Earth. I can lift a car with a regular shop vac with enough suction, but the vacuum of space can't pull the air away from the Earth. We've all seen what happens if you have a water bottle, you take it up on an airplane, it gets pressurized because even just the slight drop of pressure in an airplane, it wants to expand. How did the astronauts in their suits not pop up like the Michelin Man when they went out for a spacewalk with zero pressure? How come they didn't explode? If you look at what they're wearing pretty cool snowboarding outfits. That's it.
Let me ask you guys, let's stay on this track just for a second. We were talking about SpaceX. We're talking about all these rocket liftoffs and missions. Does anybody want to talk about the trajectory of these rockets? Are they actually reaching space? What are people finding in this environment who have been doing this research, people like you guys? What is your conclusion on the rocketry and the data that would suggest they are successfully getting into space to begin with?
Well, the lack of telemetry data that you mentioned before in the moon landings is huge. I mean, you're talking about, I think the number is 13,000 reels of missing data, right? That they supposedly recorded over or something like that. So one of the greatest feats of all time, the first man to reach space, if you will, and they lost all the telemetry data. Now you have to think about, this is not little thumb drives of information. This was in the 60s and 70s, right? This is reels. This is like big fat reels of data, and there's 13,000 of these that they lost, right? So I mean, either NASA's lying, or they just have no idea what they're doing. Right?
Yeah, Dave, you can run with this in a second too regarding SpaceX and the trajectory of those rockets. We've seen some time-lapse photography that raises a lot of questions. But Marty, how in the world did they beam back a television signal from the moon? And by the way, how did they have real-time communications from Earth to astronauts on the moon? That's a head scratcher.
Well, tricky Dick Nixon talking on an analog phone to the guys on the moon, live from the White House.
Well, and by the way,
if you want to believe that, I mean, go ahead and believe that, but that's not
transmitting through the Van Allen radiation belts.
Exactly.
And by the way, we do have the clip from A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, Bart Sibrel's documentary, in which the Apollo astronauts were caught faking the spherical Earth model. They were in near Earth orbit while they should have been approaching the moon, and they were faking this shot showing the Earth in near Earth orbit through the round portal of the orbiter, and thereby creating an Earth that looked round, but it was made to look round because of the trick photography shooting through the round window in the orbiter. So if they were in near Earth orbit at that time when they should have been approaching the moon, that alone is the smoking gun that the whole thing was theater.
Yeah, absolutely. They never show a camera. Why don't they put some cameras on the spaceship and show it pointing up the whole way? Show them going all the way up and docking with the space station. It's just, they take off, they arch over within a minute or two, and they go down, and then they switch to a cartoon. So they're just lobbing these things off the East Coast into the Bermuda Triangle, into restricted waters, and they either blow them up or they just crash them in the water. So, we think that they are launching things, and they use all different techniques. But when there's an actual launch, nobody is near it.
Have you seen the video of the privately launched little rocket that went straight up at this unimaginable speed and then just stopped? You guys know which video I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah.
Marty, can you explain that to me? I mean, let's just go back. Let's just go back to where we began. Psalm 19:1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Why would Werner von Braun put that on his tombstone?
Well, a few things there. I know which video you're talking about. Like literally, the rocket just shoots up, and then it just literally stops, and it sounds like it's hitting water. Okay, so I know a lot of the people that are listening to your show are probably Christians, and if you read the Bible, I mean, I think there's over like 240 verses that clearly says that where we're at, it ain't no spinning ball at 23.4 degrees and spinning at 1,037.5 miles an hour and 93 million miles away from the sun. There ain't nothing in the Bible that says anything like that. If you look at all of the ancient cultures of our past, whether you give them credence at all, they all essentially say that. They all essentially say the same thing. If you look at the Hindus, you look at the Mayans, you look at a lot of the native cultures here, you look at the Egyptians, right? You look at Hebrews, et cetera, et cetera. You can go on and on and on. They will all tell you that essentially the Norse particularly, that basically this is a flat plane. It's essentially circular or has essentially four corners, like it's, northeast, west, south. There's essentially a dome overhead, and there's more than likely an ice wall that surrounds this. This is essentially what you'll get when you actually listen to these ancient cultures. So now we say, okay, if we're going to listen to those ancient cultures, we're also going to take seriously what the Bible says about the cosmology that we live in. How in the world are we supposed to come to this notion that we're on some spinning ball and 93 million miles away from the sun? The only way that we actually would, possibly come to that conclusion as if an occult organization fed us this nonsense since we were children,
It's so hard to believe. It's because we've all been indoctrinated into so many lies and believing that we're weak and we're powerless and we happen by accident. That's why they can sell, I guess, people in New York State on the idea of abortion on demand right up into the 9th month. And even beyond that, if the abortion in the 9th month fails and the baby's born alive, we have the Virginia governor saying, oh, no problem, we'll keep the baby comfortable and then we'll take its life if the mother still wants. So that's a post-birth abortion. You can't make this stuff up, folks. They truly, truly hate humanity. They are aligned against us, and that's why we're having this conversation, because we're not afraid to go there. It's shocking to me, though, that now topics like these are literally off limits on YouTube. They don't want us having these conversations, and therein lies the reason we're having this one. So I did promise to play a 1-minute clip. It kind of gets us back to the whole idea of water finding its level, which I think is a very, very important thing to discuss as it relates to this particular topic. So let me go to my screen share and let me play this for you guys, and we can just go back and talk about this. Here it is. It is from Lucid Truth, the Strange Truth Project.
Okay, so what you're looking at now is a crude mock-up that I created that is going to try and represent the California to Japan scenario with the curved ocean. And let's say you have someone standing on the beach in California, and then you have someone standing all the way over there on the other side of the globe in Japan. Let's zoom in on what the person in California would see, right? They're looking around, they see nothing but a flat land. And if they were to use their water level, they would see it's flat, everything's flat. And then if we looked at the other side with the person standing on Japan, on the edge, looking out into the Pacific Ocean, they could also take their water level and they would see that it's level. They would see that it looks nothing but flat when looking out. So you have these two people, and they're looking out. They both think that they're at the top of this ball. So what's really happening throughout this ocean, throughout this body of water? Can you take a water level to everywhere and it's going to be level? Yeah, of course you know that you could. But what if this is not what's really happening? What if this is what's really happening? And the two people standing on both continents are actually just at water level as well. Wouldn't that be easier to comprehend and understand? Because water always finds its level.
I just don't think that we can underestimate the power of those words. Water always finds its level, except for in the global model, ... I mean, this is where you have to begin, I think, if you're doing this research. If water always finds its level, how do we account for a global, a spherical model of the world, of the Earth?
You want to go ahead, Dave? Well, we can't. And this is one of these great proofs that it's so simple. It's right in front of you. You experience it all the time, right? Basically, you look out at when I go to the ocean, but just 5 minutes away here, and I look out, that water is sitting level. Why? Because it's literally on a level surface, right? It's so simple. It makes sense. It's common sense. It's the sense that's common to everybody, right? Now, the NASA occult organization come in and say, nope, it's a ball and everything sticks. And because of this magical thing called gravity, which we don't even know what it is, et cetera, ad infinitum, when you go down the heliocentric model, when you just go out and experience your reality for exactly how God wanted you to experience it, you'll see that our cosmology is rather simple to understand. The model that we have is very simple to understand. The sun and moon are close. Those stars are close. Those stars are rotating around the center of the Earth. You are in the center of the Earth, and water does maintain its level because the Earth is flat.
Dave, feel free to weigh in, but what are some of the best proofs that we're not hurtling through space and flying around the sun at 66,600 miles per hour?
The fact that all of the stars are always the same every year. They never move. People say eclipses are only possible on a ball. Eclipses make no sense on a ball. There's tons of video showing that, and they make absolute perfect sense on a flat Earth. What happens is people that fight the flat Earth, for one, don't understand what the flat Earth model is. They have a false conception of it, and they're fighting against that false idea that is thrown out there by the mainstream media and the other disinfo sources. And they also don't know the reality of what they believe about their ball Earth. I mean, their spins at 1,000 miles per hour. It's chasing the sun. Orbiting the sun at 66,000 miles per hour while chasing the sun at 500,000 miles per hour. So the amount of space that we travel in the course of a year or a month or whatever amount of time is insanity. And the stars are always the same. The North Pole, the North Polaris never moves.
By the time we end this conversation, you, David, and I will all have gone, and everybody is listening, will all have gone over 500,000 miles through space.
And the stars are in the exact position that they were last year, 10 years ago, 100 years ago, as far back as we can go.
That's just in the framework of this conversation. Now, extend that to a year, extend that to 2 years, extend that to, as far as we know, several hundred to 1,000 years where they have mapped and tracked the exact same set of stars in the sky. So does that make any sense? No.
Yeah, the Big Dipper. The Big Dipper it's the only constellation I can actually pick out, and I love to look at the Big Dipper throughout the summer season. Every single night, it's always up there.
I've got one. The problem that the heliocentric gatekeepers are having is that optics have outgrown their lies. So with the P900 camera, we can zoom in on things. So we can zoom in and see ultimate details on the moon. We can see textures, we can see stuff, but from the ISS, which is only 250 miles above us, looking down on Earth with their better cameras, they can't see any detail. They can't show you things that have as much detail as we can see on the moon. I'm looking at a mountain that's 50 miles away, and the details on it are it's nothing. It's just a washed out. But we can look at the moon and see very, very clear, crisp details. It makes no sense.
With your naked eye, by the way, you have to really think about this. Like, how strong do you think your eyes are, right? We're looking at, as Dave said, we're looking at 3, 4, 5 miles away. Things get blurry. Yet with your own 2 eyes, you can look right up at the moon and you could see particular topography and geography on the moon. And then you actually employ like a P900 or P1000, and you're telling me that you're zooming into 237,000, 238,000 miles away. That's pretty absurd.
I like the idea that our technology, our consumer available technology has outgrown their lies. Yeah. All right, in the 8 or 9 minutes we have left, we'll wrap up here. If there's anything that we missed that either of you want to talk about, now's the time to bring it up. I'll just say this as we wrap it up. I don't think it's ever been more clear that the elite don't want you to know that God is real, guys. I'll end where I began with my interview with James Perloff about the fraud of Darwinism and the fraud that the elite have played on humanity. I mean, look what they did with CERN. Look what they did with that Goddard Tunnel celebration. They were celebrating Satan, literally. They do not want you to know that you're special, that you were created by a creator who loves you, and that God is real. And I think that's why researching this topic is so important. All right.
With how they've decimated YouTube, if you search certain flat earth things, you're going to get so much propaganda. So we've built websites. Marty has stuff on his site. I have the flatearthpodcast.com where we've downloaded all of the best YouTube videos, and they're there for you to watch. We also have a Facebook page, which we put the best videos on there while that lasts. But if you take the time, that's the problem. If you are hearing about flat earth for the first time and are walking away going, the earth is flat, you're not doing your homework. You need to take that belief and make it a knowing, okay? Because we don't believe the earth is flat. We know it's not a spinning ball, and it's obviously and observably flat.
Yeah, I mean, this is not like Dave said, neither one of us wanted to come to the flat earth cosmology at all. Like, it was actually sort of, and for many people that I know of, it was actually a very trepidatious journey, because you have to go through and actually say, holy shit, I've been lied to about everything. Everything I thought that I knew is wrong, right? And that's a very difficult thing. That's, you have to basically, take the sledgehammer and break down those cognitive dissonant walls in your head. And that's a difficult thing to do. And I understand that. But you have to understand that a guy like David and I and all these other people across the world are literally willing to come out and basically, say the most controversial thing that you can possibly say, and that's the earth is flat. And as Dave is saying, we're not saying that because we believe it. We're saying that because we know we can prove that what they're telling us is nonsense. So let me say that. Two other things. One other thing is, if you're getting into flat earth, the first thing you have to do is, a lot of people will try to fit flat earth cosmology into the heliocentric cosmology, and that you have to don't do that, right? The first thing you do when you get into flat earth, release your mind from all those preconceived notions and biases and all the nonsense of programming that you had over the years, and just study it for what it is. Can you prove that there's no curvature? Yes. Can you prove that the earth and the sun and the moon are close? Yes. Start there. Don't try to take a heliocentric cosmology and fit it into flat earth. That's the other thing. The last thing is, the people that run this world, they're not doing it for greed. They're not doing it for money. They're not doing it for land. They're doing it just as you said, Sean. They are trying to play God. End of story. If you want to figure out the true conspiracies of this world, you better be going to theology. You better be going to theology, because that's what they're focused on. So I just want to say that.
Yeah, amen. I just love your work, Marty. I really love your voice and your channel and your intellect. So we'll give each of you guys the opportunity here to just tell people how they can find you. And we may as well start with you, Marty. I know you've got your great YouTube channel. They disabled you once. They took you off YouTube. Now you're back. So how do people find your great YouTube channel, websites, anything else?
They disabled me twice. My main channel, Marty Leeds 33, is gone now. And Marty Leeds Live, I just got my live streaming back up last week or something like that. So Marty Leeds Live on YouTube is the best place. MartyLeeds33.com is the website. You can become a member. There's red pill videos and stuff like that there that you can watch for free. I also have the podcast, the Marty Leeds Mathematical Radio Hour, and I try to do lectures at least once a week on that, on all sorts of different subjects. We've covered Kabbalah, we've covered the Heliopolitan mystery, we've covered flat Earth, we've covered false flags, we've got et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole gang of stuff to check out there. So that's the best place.
Okay, very good. And Dave, thanks so much. It's the first time we've met, but I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks. And just let me say, what people will do is, when they hear this stuff, they'll be like, 10 reasons why the earth can't be flat. You have to say, okay, instead of saying these prove the earth is a ball, to say, how does this work in the flat earth model? Because there's a better answer. And one of the best videos is made by ODD Reality, called A Stranger's Guide to Flat Earth 21 Questions. It will answer in 2 or 3 minutes your first 21 questions. Once you watch that, then you'll be dangerous. Then you'll have enough information to really start looking. So I encourage people to go to our Facebook page. But when you air this, I will put the 21 questions as the top video on the page, so people can find it easily. And all I say is, learn what the flat earth model is for real before you try to poke holes in it. Find out what we're talking about. I also created an app that helps people see what the flat earth looks like, and you can see the movements of the stars, and actually it's going to have the stars, but the sun and the moon. And when you watch it all of a sudden it clicks. You guys mentioned the ice wall earlier. I call it the ice shoreline. We live in a world lake, and the land that surrounds us is Antarctica, and it goes out in all directions. How far, we don't know.
Well, I will say this, guys. I think that if you have stuck with us this far, you're an open-minded person who understands the fact that the elite have pretty much lied to us about everything. There's a whole hidden history to this world that they will not tell us the truth about. We know that. We know it. Just look at the Giza pyramids. There's so much hidden history to this world. And I think a lot of those answers probably can be found in the Bible, but they don't want you to know that either. God is real. You are special. And we live in a very special place. I want to thank Marty Leeds and David Weiss for coming on. Guys, thank you so much.
Yeah, Sean, thank you. And thank you for being brave and tackling the subject. We really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. They'll probably take down my YouTube channel. No worries.
It's like everybody.
All right.
And check out the Flat Earth podcast. Listen to 6 episodes and you'll be a flat earther.
Okay. Guys, thank you so much. If you stuck with us this long, please do give this a like and share it within your own sphere of influence on social media. We very much appreciate your open mind, but more importantly, we appreciate you as the special human being you are. Thank you for seeking truth, and thank you for fighting the tyranny of evil men. We love you. For real news 24/7, visit us at sgtreport.com. God bless. Bye-bye.
What should our attitude be towards patches like these? Clearly occult symbology. There you've got the 3 dragons. You've got the devil here with Get Your Kicks on 66. What should our attitude be towards these patches? Here's one with the phoenix. Next we have the one with the upside down star. Are you telling me, Sergey, that no one knows what the pentagram stands for? Is this just a surprise to you? Here's a patch, we own the night. Here's another one, the cat's out of the bag. Here's another with some sort of wizard at the top of the pyramid earth. I'm not even sure what's going on there. You've got another one with the bull, as if we don't know what that symbolizes. And here's some of the Illuminati and Freemasonic designs, which are clear, showing the Eye of Ra, showing the pyramid, the capstone, and culminating with this patch, which is as obvious as it can get, what's being shown here. Here we have a patch that says no country too sovereign, which is interesting. I'm sure other people love to hear that one. We've got this one here, a lifetime of silence behind the green door. That's always good to tell people who are the ones financing all of your work. We've got this one with a dragon holding the earth. We've got even more obvious ones like this one here called Project Zipper. We make threats, not promises. And of course the zippered mouth. How about this one? Don't ask. NOYFB, which if you don't know what that stands for, it stands for none of your effing business. How about this one here? Nunquam ante nunquam interim. Never before, never again. And you've got the 3 snakes holding the earth. Do we really need to be any more obvious than that?
When you use Google, do you get more than one answer? Of course you do.
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's a bug. We have more bugs per second in the world. Because we should be able to give you the right answer just once.